Welcome to the Straight from the Source's Mouth podcast. Frank talk about sex and dating.
Hello, Tamara here. Welcome to the show. Today's guest is Dr. Elliot Justin, CEO and founder of FirmTech. And we'll be talking about his company, which is dedicated to improving men's erectile fitness, sexual health, and by extension, cardiac health. Thanks for joining me, Dr. Justin.
Thanks for the opportunity, Tamara.
Yeah, I think this is a great topic for my listeners. I think more men, it's about 50-50, but a lot of men listen to this. So I think I have more episodes for women. So another good one for men to have.
Well, it's also good for women to know about men. And I
True.
think since women pay more attention to their health and the health of their partners, I think things are really going to change for men. It's going to come about because of women.
Yeah, good point. Very good point. Yeah, because both are affected. And I've had this discussion with people before. Both sides are too embarrassed to talk about it, and then it causes issues in the relationship. And so having this information out there in a more scientific version of it, so it doesn't feel so personal, maybe. So FirmTech, like, what does it do, or what is your mission?
Sure. Well, let me just talk briefly about how I got into this. My background, I'm an emergency medicine physician. I founded a telemedicine company, second oldest one in the country, many years ago, and that got me interested in remote patient management technology. What can people learn at home without seeing a doctor? And ultimately, from my perspective, almost all care should be at home, other than surgeries, things of that nature. Our smartphones are smarter than every doctor in the world. A urology professor at the University of Utah, a little bit over 3 years ago, heard about my work on remote patient technologies and came to me and said he wanted to count the number of nocturnal erections that men have. And I said, why? And he said, well, they're a leading indicator of man's cardiovascular health. And I was taken aback by that because we all know about morning wood and we laugh about it. But I had no idea that the number of nocturnal erections that a man has is a leading indicator of the cardiovascular health. What does that mean? Well, that means that if a man averages 4 and goes to 2, that man has a cardiovascular problem. If a man has 2 or 3 and goes to 1 or 0, that man has about a 50% chance of having a heart attack in the next 2 years. So when we say in medicine, leading indicator is different than association. In medicine, we treat associations. High blood pressure is associated with stroke, elevated lipoproteins associated with atherosclerosis. They don't predict it, though. Your HDL number, LDL number, cholesterol number, blood pressure, they don't predict your risk. They're associated with risk, but they don't predict. So, this is like a 6 vital signs. This idea excited me. So I said, why? Let's not just count nocturnal erections. Let's assess all erections. Let's come up with a wearable that can not only be worn comfortably overnight to get data about the health of the penis, or can be worn during sex, because after all, what their partners really care more about what's going on at night when they're trying to have relations. So that's the backstory for this. But you end up discovering things along the way and that you weren't anticipating. So, Tamara, you're probably unaware of the cock ring problem, right?
I know of them, but not about the problem.
Well,
no.
So look at the way vibrators have caught on for women. I'm going to be 72 in about a week. In my lifetime, my mother's vibrator was stashed in the bottom drawer of a supply closet in the garage, and it was enormous and loud. But back in the 80s, when I was really before I got married, when I was dating, they were becoming normalized, but there's still a sort of shame and embarrassment for women. Oh, you got to come with penetrative sex, and you're going to get vibrator addicted. And now I don't know how many of my wife owns, because different times of different positions, different states of mind. She wants a different sensation. And our daughter and her friends, she's 30, takes them on dates, and it's just casual for most of them. And that's just not true for their particular set. If you go to Australia, the UK, or Germany, in much of the world, even in the Persian Gulf, the vibrator has been normalized for women, and it's no longer seen as something that's shameful. It's seen as an enhancer. And if you try to take away vibrators from most women, they think, "What the fuck are you doing? You don't want that thing." So, but what do men have? Nothing. So these cock rings, these are a cock ring problem. Cock rings have been made the same stupid way for 150 years. Here's one on my desk. That's your classic. It's an O-ring. They're made out of silicone. They're tough. They pinch. They're uncomfortable. They're hard to put on. They're hard to take off. You can only wear them for 20, 30 minutes, especially for men who have compromised circulation. And unfortunately, many men today are hypertensive, diabetic, atherosclerosis, obese, and have compromised circulation. In order to come up with a way of counting the number of nocturnal erections overnight, we had to reinvent the cock ring. So I got one on my desk somewhere here. Our cock rings are made out of elastomer, not silicone. They stretch more easily. The material is softer, and they can be worn for hours. So they don't. It's not like putting a noose on your penis. I mean, who wants to lynch their penis? They allow the arterial blood to flow in, but they only constrain the venous return. So that leads to a more comfortable, longer lasting cock ring, so that men using our ring can have more sustained erections. They're harder, and they're more. And as a consequence, men are more confident. And the rings are also designed to enhance a man's pleasure, because once we came out with the data, which was what was really driving this, my thought was, well, how can we? Vibrators don't work for men. How can we enhance a man's pleasure? And the answer was to put the right amount of pressure over the urethra to prolong the ejaculatory phase. The longer the ejaculatory phase, the longer lasting the orgasm. So it's not as good as a vibrator, but with our technology, our rings, my ejaculatory phase goes from 4 seconds to 7 seconds, and that's an incredible orgasm. And I never, cock rings until 2 years ago were not a regular part of my life. They were a novelty. I'm fortunate to be married to someone who likes sex toys. By the way, to all your listeners, if you're thinking about getting married, don't marry someone who's not into sex toys. Marry someone into sex toys. Check that out first, because marriage lasts a long time. Anyway, for us, cock rings were like, you go to a sex toy store a couple times a year, and it's a novelty. And now, then it's not a novelty. Now it's actually an effective enhancer of male pleasure, plus a device that can give men vital information about their sexual health.
Yeah. So I was going to say, is there a certain time where like it'll stop working, or is it like a good go between before ED like sets in, or does it kind of prolong that kind of stuff?
That's a great question, because so much of the emphasis now in healthcare is on prevention. If you or I went to a doctor for an annual physical, or we just, we're concerned about health, we want to know about the baseline, or maybe we went to the gym, our blood pressure's up a little bit. We expect our doctors to make decisions on the basis of data. We wouldn't go to a doctor, you or I, and say, we're both different genders, different ages, and tell that doctor, when I go to the gym or when I walk up a hill, my pulses are irregular. And the doctor would say, oh, you must have a cardiac arrhythmia tomorrow. Take this pill and come back in 3 months. We would think, what the fuck? Is this 1900? You got a blood pressure cuff here? You got an electrocardiogram machine in the office? Are you going to get any blood tests? We expect care to be data-driven. But when it comes to men's and women's sexual health, they just have conjecture, and without data, they don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we've identified, but to answer your question explicitly, we can identify problems before they occur. So I'll put it this way. If a guy is 25 and has a couple of, I don't even want to call it ED, because ED dysfunction, I'd rather call it disappointments. The guy has a couple of times he can't get it up, and that guy goes online and gets some pills. I don't have a problem with that. But if a man is over the age of 45, who has borderline high blood pressure, is a little bit overweight, I'm certain that in the future, what we're doing will become a standard for care. Just the way that man or that woman who's in their 40s, just when health starts to deteriorate, they're going to want to identify their problems before they occur. So you're going to want, just the way you want to know your baseline blood pressure or your baseline liver proteins, you're going to want, or sugar, you're going to want to know your baseline health of your penis or your clitoris. And a wearable can easily and comfortably identify that for you. So we've had 2 men that I'm aware of get cardiac catheterizations because of our device. We've had 2 men identify significant adrenal problems. These are younger guys, because hormone problems because of our device. When we first started out about 2 years ago at the Consumer Electronics Show, our database was like 800 erections, and probably a third of them were mine. Our database now 57,000 erections based on the experience of many hundreds of men. So we have data that could allow, a 50-year-old man who's borderline diabetic to actually say, well, how do I compare to other men with my condition? And how do I compare to an ideal man, a man in good health at my age? Because that's really where you want to be.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, is there like a normal amount of nocturnal emissions or whatever stuff you check? Yeah,
it is. And it's not what the doctors thought. Mm-hmm. So previously, I'm going back to the 90s now, there was a device called the Regiscan. It's still used, but almost never used in the United States. It looks like something Dr. Frankenstein would put in your penis. You have these things attached to you, the head of the penis, the bottom of the shaft, wires going to machines, and you have to fall asleep with this thing on. Couldn't wear it. And also you can't wear it during sex. It doesn't measure what's most important to people. And that on the basis of that device, people, doctors say, okay, well, here's what's normal. Well, that data set was just a few hundred men. And that data set also didn't measure, that device did not and does not measure how hard the erections are, the quality of the erections, if you will. So it's missing out on an important data point. The thinking was that men have 4 to 5 nocturnal erections per night, and then it deteriorates from there. Well, teenagers and men in the very early 20s have 4 or 5 nocturnal erections per night, but around age 30, late 20s, 30, it settles into basically 3 or 3 plus per night, and then goes down slightly in the 70s to 2.8. Well, that's not what doctors are thinking. Doctors are thinking, and this is really important. This is a really important medical discovery that comes out of our data. The incidence of erectile dysfunction in men, probably in women too, goes up 10% per decade after age 40. So the thinking was that, the number of nocturnal erections as erectile dysfunction goes up, number of nocturnal erections should goes down, but it doesn't. And that's really, so what's causing this increased incidence of erectile dysfunction? The thinking also was that as the incidence of erectile dysfunction goes up from age 40 on, that sex erections will become less hard, but they don't. Now, they do, obviously, if a man has a significant health problem, a heart attack, a stroke, if he's taking multiple medications, if he's an alcoholic, but excluding men with really significant disease, not minor disease, borderline high blood pressure, elevated lipoproteins, but excluding men with significant disease, nocturnal erections remain pretty constant after age 40, and hardness remains pretty constant after age 40. And that means that the doctors are not thinking about the problem the right way. It's not the heart, nor is it the arteries. So doctors right now, it's like, think about the cardiovascular system as a pump and pipes. The heart's the pump. Okay. Doctors say, okay, the pump's not pumping strong enough. Men can get ED. That's true. But most men's hearts are pumping adequately in order to maintain the number of nocturnal erections and the hardness of erections. Then the next thought is the arteries. Well, the arteries get narrow with hypertension, diabetes, atherosclerosis. So let's give them these PD5 medications, erection pills, Viagra and Cialis being the number 2 and number 1 now. And they slightly dilate the artery. They dilate the arteries, put more blood into the penis, but they don't keep it there. And if a man's problem is that most men's problem is not that they can't attain an erection. A guy can't attain an erection, needs to see a doctor. That man has a significant cardiovascular or neurological problem. Most men's problem, though, the vast majority of men who have ED get an erection, they lose it. And they lose it for many reasons. They could lose it because of medications, disease, alcohol. These things all work together on up to things that men don't want to talk about with their partners, nor the partners really want to hear it, which is boredom, lack of friction as people get older, or just distraction. So what else is happening as people get older? Blood leaves the penis faster on the other side of the circulation, on the venous side of the circulation. And this happens elsewhere in the body. So, the illustration I use for this is probably true for you too, Tamara, because women have weaker microvasculature than men do. If I sat in a plane for 6 hours, my socks might get a little bit tight. My rings might get a little bit tight as well too. Why is that? It didn't happen to me when I was 25 or 30 years old. It's because the veins, the little venules, are getting stiffer, and the smooth muscle around them that squeezes them gets weaker with age. Well, so instead of blood being pumped back to the heart, squeezed back to the heart, if you will, it stays where it is, so we get a little swollen. What's the impact of the penis? The blood leaves the penis. Every erection ends with blood leaving the penis. So one of the goals of therapy that doctors have missed is, okay, we're looking at the pump, looking at the arteries, we're trying to get more blood in, but what about keeping the blood there? So I wasn't thinking about this when I got involved in this. I was thinking about nocturnal erections as a leading indicator of cardiovascular health. But what became obvious early on is actually a comfortable ring leads to a longer lasting erection, and men need to put a ring on it and not see rings as crutches or for fetish guys or for gay guys. They see rings as an enhancer of their pleasure, just the way vibrators are for women.
Yeah. And like you said, it's more comfortable than the standard one. So There should be no reason not to. And if you learn about yourself and find out your health and it helps last longer for the woman will be happy too, potentially. So
Exactly.
sounds like a win-win.
Also, it actually allows women to address one of the common, I mentioned some of the common male complaints for, hey, I'm bored. I've been made missionary, is the missionary position for the 2000th time. Or it could be some guy, no guy wants to tell his wife, you've had 3 babies. I don't feel anything. I'm telling your wife or your partner that your pussy's loose. That's kind of a buzzkill in the bedroom. But it's something that men, I get 2 or 3 guys telling me that a week. It's really been interesting because I got these. I speak to customers for nothing. So I want to know what's going on with people, and commonly hear from men in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. I ask them, when do you get ED? Because the doctors never ask them. The doctors give them a pill. The doctors recommend testosterone or shockwave therapy or something. They don't ask them when. And so when do you? Well, I'm hard, and then when I penetrate, I'll lose it. So what do you feel when you're penetrating? I've heard this from 2 guys in the last week and a half. Nothing. Well, yeah. Well, because your wife's had 5 kids and you're 75 and you're 75 years old. Of course you feel nothing. You and your wife have an unrealistic expectation about you guys want to have sex like you're 25 and it's not going to be. Now, what's the female complaint about men? We have to focus too much on their pleasure. They don't focus enough on our pleasure. That's because the guys are worried about losing their erections. And a ring, you kind of alluded to this before, a ring is a game changer for both people. Women want to be able to focus on their pleasure, appropriately so. That's not a complaint. If a woman knows that a man is going to stay hard, then she can focus. When I got into this, it was for the data. But the impact on our marriage, it'll be 37 years this year. The impact of just the ring has totally changed the way in which my wife and I make love. We make love, about 50% longer because there's no longer this, hey, we're both turned on, sort of rush to orgasm. We got to get it, before either one of us loses it, basically. Okay? Yeah. We got this sort of, rush to orgasm. Instead, she knows that I'm going to stay hard. And that's whether it's in a position that I don't, again, don't get me wrong. I don't mind the missionary position or having sex from behind. I just don't get the friction that I did, or the turn on that I did when I was 30, 35 years of age. But with a ring on, I'm not losing it. And that's a game changer mentally for her and for me.
Yeah. So even if the friction isn't there, it's still the hardness is what makes it good. Yeah. And then the added part about you said with the urethra, pushing on that.
Orgasms are amazing. I mean, my wife has said several times she's glad our kids are growing and out of the house because I'm noisy for the first time.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the interruption. I just wanted to point out that there is a send us a text message at the very beginning of the description, and you can use that to send in an anonymous question or comment. So I'd really appreciate it. All right. Thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, every episode I have is pretty much the goal is to have people realize you can have sex for a long time and it can be good. And you just need to learn and educate yourself on how to have it be that way. And women with the right hormones, estradiol cream down there to not be so dry, it makes everyone happy. And
there's also testosterone replacement therapy for women. So two things. One, I am surprised and pleased that so many of our customers are in their 70s and have really active sex lives. I mean, admirable sex lives. And then also, as more and more women are taking postmenopausal women, I mean, that's the missing hormone. I mean, it's really kind of shocking to me. I mean, I early on felt that hormone replacement therapy, estrogen and progesterone, was important for postmenopausal women. It wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago that I realized, it's obvious. Women need testosterone as well. What else happens during menopause? The ovaries stop producing testosterone, and you can restore libido with testosterone.
Yeah, I actually just read a book yesterday called How I Dare I Say It, What I Wish I'd Known About Menopause. She mentions the same thing. Her libido had gone down, and she started on testosterone patches, or I guess there's creams and different stuff too.
The injections are the most effective. The creams, the absorption of the creams is irregular, and the dose that they're using is small. So, it's important, I think, with hormones to decide what your goal for men and for women. What is your goal with this hormone? And then to measure those goals objectively, because of course the drug companies are more than happy to push this stuff on us. But if your goal, but if the questions you're answering are, gee, I want more energy, I want more sleep. Well, those things are kind of subjective, and there are other factors that can enter into that. Hey, if someone wrote me a check today for $10 million, I'm going to sleep really well tonight, and I'm going to wake up tomorrow with a lot of energy. So there are a lot of other factors that energy and sleep are subjective. I guess is the point that I'm making. But for a woman or for a man, there are two things that are objective. One is men in their andropause and women in menopause, they lose muscle mass, and that accelerates with age as you get deeper into it. Well, you can put a tape measure around your upper thigh and around your pecs and around your biceps, man or woman, and say, okay, here's my baseline, and now I'm going to start taking testosterone. And I'm going to go, whatever, you go still do your regular routine. Maybe I'm just your average person, goes to the gym 3 times a week and does whatever, Pilates or weights or whatever. Am I losing muscle mass or am I gaining muscle mass? I take tea, not because that has any impact upon my penis, although I measure that as well too. I take tea because I gained 8% in upper body strength without pushing it. Well, that was, I was 70 when I started. That's significant. And in the women to whom I prescribe tea, what are their goals? Their goals are twofold. They like to lose some belly fat. They'd like to at least sustain their muscles. Well, ideally they'd like to gain some muscle strength in their and that's easy to measure in the thighs and in the same thing, in biceps or pecs. And they'd like to have their libido restored. They like their mindset to go from, if I get turned on, I can have an orgasm too. Oh my God, my husband looks hot coming out of the shower. Look at his butt. I want to have sex with him tonight. Can you quantify that? That's hard to quantify, but it's a lot more obvious than, hey, I'm sleeping a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say too, the attraction thing, like it is usually, women orgasm want to have sex, all that stuff in the brain. Like they need to hear certain things. But like you're saying, testosterone would take that away, since a lot of men aren't so good at that part of it. They have foreplay where they lead the woman to it, 20 minutes before, 30 minutes all day long. And so a little bit of testosterone will give her a push to not need so much of that. And then I can see a couple working out much better.
The women to whom I prescribe testosterone basically say they feel like they have sex. These are women in the 60s and 70s. They don't feel like they're 14 years old again, but they feel like they're in their 30s again. They've gone from, I can live without it, to, no, I want to have an orgasm a couple times a week. And that and to the point you just made, which is real important, that changes the dynamic between them and their partners, because it's not, wait till date night. It's tonight.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of the disconnect I've heard is just, women take it that men just want to jump on her, without any kind of anything ahead of time.
Especially we're older. It's the whole. True. I mean, that's part of the whole. God, that really impacts. My kids' age. I mean, because they still have these sort of movie fantasies. I mean, if I walked over to my wife right now, who's in the room working, and pushed her up against the wall, tore her pants down, she would think, "What the heck is wrong with you, an animal?" Whereas that's the type of sex that goes on in the movies, or like Game of Thrones sex. I mean, there's no way my wife's going to push me down on the back, and we're both going to come in 2 minutes, on the floor. That's just not reality.
Yeah, it's not reality for relationships or sex. Yeah, unfortunately, and everyone wants that fantasy of all that stuff, and
not me.
A lot of disappointment comes from it.
I'd rather make love for about an hour, 45 minutes or an hour, and frankly, that's what the ring enables. Because again, my wife knows that I have the ring on, and this isn't just true for me. We research this with our customers, that I'm going to stay hard for a protracted period of time, and that is just that's a game changer. Another thing we've discovered is that the ring is as effective as Cialis, which is tadalafil, which is the most popular erection pill. That's a game changer for men, and that data is going to be published this summer. And
that's awesome.
It's a non-pharmacological solution to most men's ED, which is not the candidate, which is they need to help sustaining an erection.
Yeah, and they have to do it like so far in advance to have it work, right? This ring they could just put it on right before.
You don't have to have it hard on. You can put it on when you're flaccid.
Yeah. I mean, and I like you said, the data too of understanding. Because I mean, I know just one point you brought up earlier about if they're having issues with erection or if it's kind of soft like the whole time, that indicates for sure there's a cardiovascular issue. Because I've had that a couple times, and one guy, like an ex, had that, and then years later he had like a quadruple or quintuple bypass within a few years. And yeah, it was pretty evident. So then the next guy that was having that issue, I told him the same thing. I'm like, hey, another guy had heart issues with a similar thing to you. So,
well, I just had a conversation a few months ago with a woman who bought the ring for her man, because men don't want to pay attention to health problems. And the guy was belittling her for her poor sexual performance and blaming his problem on her. He had difficulties getting an erection, and it went away quickly. Well, he only had one nocturnal erection. He ended up seeing a cardiologist. He had a significant problem. And instead, he was taking it out on his partner.
Yeah.
And that
definitely happens.
Yeah, that's another thing that people are just really poor at communicating these things. Because the other extreme, of course, is the guy who gets erections and loses it and would just benefit from a ring because he's bored. Or they're just doing the same thing. There's this whole trend right now to saying that, men are addicted to porn and therefore they get addicted to their hand. Well, there's more to that. I'm certain that goes on, and I'm certain that there are guys who, hey, if the only way you can get off is by watching a spiked heel on pornography, you got a fetish. Maybe it's good you take it off the street and you're at home doing it in privacy. But for most men, it's not they're dependent upon this. It's that their hand or their partner's hand, male or female, is better because it provides more friction and it has a brain attached to it. Yeah. This can provide sensations or mouth that a vagina, a rectum simply can't do. Those are just holes.
Yeah, and obviously your own hand, guy knows what works for himself, and or his partner. Yeah. I want to. You said, what you said earlier about communication, like there's so many relationships that could be helped by this kind of thing. So I really hope that people get a hold of this and start using it. And on that note, how do you find it? Or you can say what you're going to say.
I just want to make one more point if I can, Tamar.
Yeah.
We all, men and women, are on the road from fitness to dysfunction, sexually and other ways, but sexually. Without data, we don't know where we are. It'd be like driving a car without a dashboard. We need data to say, okay, here's where I am. Ideally, of course, I'd like to stop going down this road to dysfunction. Ideally, I find myself that I'm fit, and I can then measure myself, going forward. Maybe even reverse course if I have a problem. So the data is really, we talked a lot about sex, but I do want to emphasize the data is really important for men to know to know what their baseline values are. If they have a problem, to find out where they are. You can find us at myFirmTech, MyFirmTech, myFirmTech.com. You can find me there personally at Elliot, ELLIOT, at myFirmTech.com.
Okay. Awesome. And then back to porn real quick as a guy, like I think you're also going to say about porn is it's also variety. For some men, it's not that they need it per se. It's just when boredom, it gives them variety of different types, and it doesn't mean they want that personally, physically in person, but it just adds to the arousal. But I don't understand why women get so mad or offended by it. But I guess like you said, if it's addiction and it's like 20 hours a day and they never look at the woman, maybe that's one thing. But
women watch a lot of porn too, not as much as men do. Yeah. Pornography for women is shopping. So one thing that's kind of interesting is, people joke about how porn made the internet, but it's not porn that sustains the internet. It's shopping, and women spend 8 times as much time shopping online as men spend watching porn. Now, there are studies showing that very similar dopamine hits are going on in the brain. These are small numbers of people in these studies. Arousal in women, not orgasm, but arousal in women and arousal while shopping, if you will, produce excitement while shopping are lighting up the same part of the brain. It's now, granted, these studies have like 6 people in them or 10 people in them, but when women complain about men watching porn, guys should make the point about, hey, stop shopping. I'll spend more time shopping online. You spend more time watching porn.
That's funny. All right. Well, I think this is a good time to make any closing comments or just like something you want to for sure leave everyone with.
Sure. I would just reiterate, men should put a ring on it now. Put a ring on it to learn about your sexual health, and put a ring on to maximize your sexual performance. What guy doesn't want to be more confident, last longer, get harder, and have a more intense orgasm? Rings are not crutches. They're enhancers and teachers.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. And if you liked this episode and or loved it, be sure to tell your friends about it and share it as well. All right. Or rate it as well and share it. Both. All right. Well, thank you again, Dr. Justin. It was awesome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you. All righty. Bye, everyone.
Frank Talk, sex and dating educates.